In this problem, we are going to walk through exercise 3-43 from the chapter 3 homework. So go ahead and pause the video and read through this information. And keeping in mind, this is the cost method. So before we get into our worksheet and start creating the CD entries, we have to first do the adjusting entry that is going to bring us up to the equity method. And so I just plugged in the formula for us figuring out that adjusting entry over here. It's the change in retained earnings of the subsidiary from the acquisition through the beginning of the year minus the sum of our AAP amortization from acquisition through the beginning of the year. So that's just our little reminder. Down below, let's go ahead and start pulling out some of this information just so that we have it and it'll be easier for us to use Excel. So our parent acquired the subsidiary for $1,020,000. The purchase price was $552,500 in excess of the subsidiary's book value. The excess purchase price was $212,500 on PPE that was undervalued. So now we're showing that. And it had a life of 10 years. And so off to the side, we can just take that PPE value divided by 10 years, and we get the straight line depreciation of $21,250. We also see that $340,000 was assigned to goodwill. And blah, blah, blah. On the acquisition date, the subsidiary reported retained earnings equal to 238. So we can put acquisition retained earnings, 238,000. Okay, so now we have to actually go through this process of us doing the other thing that we might want to just pull down into the information here is the time since acquisition. And that is 1 year because we acquired January 1st, 2021. And so that entire year has passed. And then we're really looking at time since acquisition till beginning of year. And so we're only at the very next year. So only 1 year has passed. And the reason that we want that is because we'll be able to use it when we're calculating the sum of the amortization thus far. So as far as the adjusting entry goes, we are going to update both the beginning of year retained earnings. So we can put ADJ here. That's going to be one of our adjusting entries. And that is going to bring this up to equity method. And then the other part is going to be on the equity investment. So we'll put ADJ down here. And that's going to also bring this up to the equity method. And so let's just jump into this very first one where we're in G15 and calculate this formula of what our adjusting entry needs to bring our current books up to the equity method. And so we'll say equals and then open parentheses. And so where we're first trying to calculate the change in retained earnings, we can go ahead and take our subsidiaries beginning of year retained earnings and subtract out the acquisition retained earnings. And so that is showing us the change, acquisition through beginning of year. So we can close parentheses there. We've now calculated the change in retained earnings minus, open parentheses again, Now we have to take care of this part that says the sum of all AAP amortization acquisition through beginning of year. And so we calculated what the amortization was. So that is $21,250 times the time that's passed since acquisition. And in this case, it's only one, so it might seem kind of silly to do that. But I think it's best to get in the habit so that you can just like plug in how many years have passed right here and that it'll update rather than you having to modify your formula. And so when we do that, we get 250,750. And we'll also post that down here. And now this equity investment, we see before we've done anything else, before we've done any of our CD entries, it's currently sitting at 1,270,750. So we updated it from the cost method of 1,020,000 to the equity method that would be reporting it at 1,270,750. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and begin all of our CD entries. So just like normal, we will start with C, where we're going to eliminate investment income, dividends, and close those out to equity investment. So let's come up here. C, 34,000. I could jump down to the dividends. 34,000. All right. And then in this case, because those eliminate each other, we don't actually have to do anything inside of equity investment. So in this case, that just looks a little bit different than a C entry that we've seen before, but they paid out 100% of the investment income, and so there is no update to the equity investment to do. All right, we've done our C. Now we need to do the E, and so we are going to eliminate beginning of year retained earnings. Scroll down, get the common stock and the APIC. Pop down, and this one we are going to update here in our equity investment, and so we'll put E here and do a sum. I guess I changed this E to a text, so I'll fix that in just a second. We can still do the sum. It's going to give me an error, but we can just fix this. Okay, that looks better. So we've now eliminated the equity of our subsidiary. And so now we can move into the A entry, which is to bring our, to update the PPE and goodwill from our AAP. And so we'll do that here. We'll put A, and that's going to also start reducing our equity investment, because really what we're doing is like explaining what's inside of this equity investment. So we're taking it out of this because we're now displaying it as a standalone set of assets. And so again, remember that this PPE is going to be the carrying value. And so if we come up, we didn't calculate carrying value, but we can just open parentheses and do that really quickly by taking the original PPE minus, in this case, only 1 year of amortization or depreciation has happened so far. So minus the 21,250, close parentheses, and we get the carrying value of 191,250. Goodwill is up here at 340,000 and is already labeled, so that's good. And we'll do a sum of both of these. Okay, now we have C, E, A. We need D, which is our depreciation for the current year. So there's 21,250 for this year. And so we're going to increase our operating expenses. Put D here. Go grab those operating expenses. We'll come down here. And this is decreasing the carrying value of our equipment, so that's why it's going on the plant, property, and equipment line for 21,250. And so now we have done all of our CD entries, just we did an adjustment entry first, and we can still do a double check that we really have those same indicators where equity investment is gone and equity income and equity investment are both gone. We don't have the exact same double check of the net income because in this case, it wasn't all updated like using the equity method all along. And so that, unfortunately, that part of it doesn't work out the same for us. And then now that you've filled out your worksheet, you can go ahead and plug in your values down here.